I don't want to spend a long time on the intro to this like I did on the first one, which you can find in the corner thing if I remember to put it there. This is movie 2 in the Werewolf Game series, but don't worry if you skip the villagers side, they're not connected in any way besides the premise, so you're not missing much. Though this one raises some questions for the future of this series. As the name implies, the B-side is all about following the werewolves part in the game as they work around the villagers and work with their ally to try and survive. This movie is probably above the villagers side for me on the whole, but it does have some issues comparatively. The biggest one, for me, being that the kids here are a lot shittier than the original group was. I specifically said that one of my selling points in the first one was that all of the kids were just trying to survive. Nobody tried to get somebody else killed for their own personal gain or out of spite or anything like that. They either always had a reason or it needed to be done for them to survive. This movie doesn't do that, or at least not completely. I think this will make more sense as I go over the film, so let's just get into that, yeah? So we actually start out with what seems to be flashbacks to a previous game, but definitely not the game from the villager side, where they seem to be executing a kid that was presumably the werewolf, as we see the girl holding the axe in the flashbacks awaken now in a meeting room with a group of other kids, some of which seems to be classmates as they wear similar uniforms, and the others that don't wear the uniforms do seem to know each other as they all refer to each other by their names. The first thing that happens is an explanation of the werewolf game. Same rules as last time. Everyone takes a vote to kill one person, hopefully the werewolf. Then the werewolf will kill one person until there are either only villagers left or an equal number of werewolves as there are villagers. This time, however, there are a couple of new roles introduced to the game that can cause some wrinkles. One is the joint owners, which is honestly kind of useless. All that happens is that the joint owners know who each other is. The other is the guardian / bodyguard, who gets to pick one player per night and protect them from the werewolves. This is a huge benefit to the villagers and a big problem to the werewolves, but since the guardian can never pick themselves to be protected, they have to do their best to remain hidden. The biggest change, like right at the beginning of the movie, is the tone. Because nobody tries to leave the building like Irie's friend did at the beginning of the first one and was killed for, nobody's killed at the beginning of this movie, meaning that all the kids who weren't part of Yuka's class and weren't part of the last game don't believe that it's real, and they're very relaxed and jokey about the whole situation. And to not arouse too much suspicion, everyone from the last game seems to be avoiding revealing their past experience. Just like the first movie, a lot of the downtime is just them talking about their lives and bonding, which, while interesting to watch and honestly probably the strongest part of these movies, it's a pain to try to describe here in this format, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit. The first vote begins, and with all games of Werewolf, this vote sucks. There's no information to work with, except that Enomoto offers that she is a joint owner and that she won't reveal who the other one is, which is a really smart move if you're going to be a joint owner, except for the fact that it kind of puts her in the crosshairs. And she knows this, and because she's putting herself in so much danger, she's asked to control the first votes, and she's probably going to die in the night. She offers up Toto, who is very upset with the idea, but instead Yanagawa offers to be the test case, and pretty unanimously takes the first vote. This is kind of a weird situation, because he seems to have been part of the last game with Yuka, and he should know what's going to happen if he leaves, but he's very calm and relaxed about it. And Reiko, his girlfriend, desperately tries to get him not to go outside, while the others are laughing and joking about how serious and sad she is. But the mood instantly shifts when his neck ruptures and he falls over dead. As the others recover from what just happened, Yuka seems to be stealing his shoes, but Issei reveals that the other group came here of their own volition, getting onto a bus that brought them here. But now that they know what's really at stake, they can only solemnly return to their rooms and await the first hunt. And this is where we meet the two werewolves, Yuka and Reiko. They have a brief strategy meeting and comment that there was no guardian or anything like that last time, so most likely their last game was similar to what we saw on the villagers side. Reiko does comment, though, that Yuka seems to have changed. That, like Irie in the first one, she was so against killing the last time they played, but she fits right into this role with gusto. They pick their target and try to get into his room, but find it locked. protected by the Guardian, we assume, and that failing to get into their target's room seems to lock the others. The night is deemed a failure and they begin the next day. Issei calls a quick meeting where he reveals that Akiko, the supposed joint owner, revealed to him that she is actually a werewolf and sought his help because they've been dating. But he is willing to sacrifice her to keep everyone else, and by extension himself, alive. That night, Yuka declares that Reiko is actually the prophet, but Kosone counters that he is the prophet instead, and that Issei is a werewolf, which Todo is confused by because he says that Issei told everyone that Akiko was a werewolf. She counters by saying that she was asking what he would do if she was the werewolf, and the whole meeting just quickly falls apart as Akiko says that she is pregnant with Issei's child, and that's why he was trying to offer her up, which he doesn't deny. Yuka calls for a vote, and while a few are scattered, Issei does lose. This is what I was talking about earlier, as this is the first character who tried to kill someone for purely personal reasons, and he even chose to justify his actions before fighting his way free. Akiko ends up taking the gun herself and shoots Issei down, first wounding him heavily and then chasing him into the stairwell and shooting him several more times. We cut to each of the players all dealing with their murder in their own way before Yuka takes his bracelet and the night hunt begins. Yuka and Reiko take a little bit to discuss their strategy of Reiko pretending to be the prophet, but in exchange, Yuka has to be the one who kills their targets. They decide that Akiko will be their first target, who tells them that she's already gotten rid of the baby before Yuka kills her. The next morning, Reiko reveals that she looked up Taira and that he was a villager, and they quickly realize that Akiko is missing. But before they can investigate, Todo stops them to say that he's the prophet. That's 3 now, if you're keeping track at home. And Todo says that he didn't understand the rules, which is why he didn't reveal anyone on the first night, but that he looked up Kasone last night, and he is a villager. Before they can figure out what's happening, though, they find Kasone bleeding to death. Todo says that he stabbed himself after seeing Akiko's dead body. You can actually go back and watch him during the last trial, and you can see that he seems to have an infatuation with Akiko. And you can see the way he reacts to information and reveals that happened during that trial. And then he reveals as he dies that he lied about being a prophet to protect her. But since she died anyway, he has no reason to live. After he passes, they have a small meeting where Munakata says that Reiko must be lying about being the prophet because she found one of the beads from her hairband on Akiko's bed. Unable to explain how it got there, Reiko confesses to being a werewolf. That night, they have their vote, but Reiko refuses to reveal the other werewolf before leaving her seat and dying out the front door, kind of like her boyfriend did. This was a busy day with 3 separate deaths. But Todo begs the Guardian to protect him tonight, and he'll reveal Yuka in the morning. Yuka, learning from Reiko's death, dons an entire costume to attempt to enter Todo's room, which she finds unlocked. She takes a moment to decide how she's going to kill him before taking a pencil and stabbing him with it, and then begins framing a struggle in the room. When they find him in the morning, Taira Taira? I'm going to go Taira. Immediately accuses Yuka, but she says that no girl could have beaten Todo in a fight, which is supported by others. But Taira counters by revealing that he's the other joint owner. Yuka counters by putting the final nail in his coffin by quote-unquote finding his shirt button at the scene while taking Todo's socks. We cut to the vote where they all vote for him, and he jokingly votes for each of them. There's no struggle as he quietly gets up, turns to them stating that he's going to go see his classmates, and then he runs out the front door to his death. It's actually very reminiscent of the final death in the first movie. We have one more scene of bonding and friendship before the night begins. The whole time, Yuka has spent almost all of her downtime events with Munakata. They opened up to each other and share a pretty deep bond, including the night before last, but Yuka's decided that she'll be the final kill. She finds the door locked. Hitomi, the girl in the background this entire movie, was the Guardian and protected her. There's a nice little flashback showing how much she seemed to dislike Todo, and that's why she didn't protect him even though he asked her. Yuka tries one last gambit, claiming that she is the Guardian and she saved Munakata, but it falls apart even under the most basic questioning. The vote begins, and they waste no time in calling out that Yuka is most likely the werewolf, to which she reveals that, yeah, she is the werewolf. But there is no prize at the end of this game. This is even her first game. She says that she's played 2 times before this and won both of them, but she's still here. They call for the vote, and Hitomi is voted out. Munakata says that neither she nor Hitomi could possibly go through this again, and even assists Yuka in strangling Hitomi to death before her device ruptures and she falls down dead. Yuka wins her 3rd game in a row. She then takes some time to collect herself and prepare for her final exit before going through Munakata's notebook and finding beautiful drawings that she had done of Yuka. This finally seems to break down her walls, and she cries for a little bit. She then takes all the things that she's collected from the others and exits the building. As she makes her way down the road, she begins to discard all the items she collected, just tossing them on the road behind her like so much trash. It's a sweet trope, kind of subverted. Yuka takes no treasures from this, no trophies. She doesn't cling to memories or old friends, but instead presses on by herself, carrying her own way to the end. And with the removal of Munakata's notebook, we end. The B-side is a very different experience from the villagers. While I felt bad for everyone involved in the villager side, even the werewolves, it was harder for me to empathize with these kids, especially after it was revealed that most of them came here willingly. Yuka, however, is the shining star of this movie, and while I couldn't spend too much time on the bonding / character building she does because it's entirely just talking, it is definitely the strongest part of her character and really made me feel for her. I suppose it's entirely on the strength of her character and the performance that she has in this movie that I put this movie above the Villagers side. If you are a fan of the Villagers side, please give this one a chance. It'll be fun. And in 2 weeks, we'll follow the crazy fox down the foxhole. Until then, always remember, whether you like, comment, and subscribe or not, you're still a friend to me. Good night.
It's not a big deal.